Hopefully you can see that. My name is Liliana Soohoo-Hui. I'm a student physical therapist at Pacific University. I will be graduating in 2027. So right now I'm the second year of my third 3 years in this program. And I was just going to talk to you a little bit about my path to healthcare and some advice I have for grad school. It's a little bit of a roadmap here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. And we're also going to talk about choosing a career and my advice with that. Then we're going to move on to talking about graduate school admissions very generally, and then what it's like, at least for me, in graduate school. I will talk briefly about finances, and then I'll also have some helpful links at the end. And let's get started. Okay, so a little bit about me. I initially got interested in healthcare around middle school. I really liked working with my hands, learning how the human body works, and then but I also wanted to learn about people's stories. So that kind of brought me to physical therapy, which is what I'm working towards right now. I was homeschooled through high school, and then I went to University of Portland to get my Bachelor's of Science in Biology. I graduated in 2023 with my friend Sandy, as you see in the picture. She's actually with me in my program right now as well. Some hobbies I enjoy. I enjoy playing guitar. I also like doing embroidery, going to the gym, and I also like spending time with my loved ones. Down on the right over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but that is my boyfriend and great support, Sebastian. He was there at my white coat ceremony, which just happened in May. Okay, choosing a career. I would advise you to narrow it down to a few that you're interested in. So some things that you can consider when you're narrowing it down is personal factors. So what do you enjoy? What interests you? Second, and I think is the biggest thing, is figuring out why do you want to go into this? Is it just because of the pay? Is it just because you enjoy it? And finding a balance between all of those factors. Another thing to consider is the sustainability in the job. How long do you see yourself doing this for? Is it 5 years, 30 years? That's also something to consider. And then another thing to look at is society's needs. So this can be thought of as job outlook. Is it a growing field or is it kind of a declining field? And I'll link another resource for that at the end. Um, when choosing a career, I would really recommend you shadow or work in areas that interest you. For me, I did some shadowing before I graduated college, and that really helped solidify my decision to go into physical therapy. And then just to double check myself, I also took a job as a physical therapist aide, just to make sure I wanted to spend all that money and that I really wanted to do it and I knew what I was getting into. Third, I would recommend talking to your career center, sorry about that, about different options that you have. They can also give you advice on finances, and they're really great. They can also help you with your resumes, interviewing, all that sort of things. Use it because it's usually free. At my undergrad, it was free, so definitely use that. Okay, talking about graduate school admissions. Some common components of the application include letters of recommendation. You're going to usually want 2 to 3. Sometimes they require it to be from people who already work in the field. So for me, one of my applications required 2 physical therapist recommendations. Essays. So this is going to be where you're expressing yourself. Everything else about your application is very like on paper. It is what it is, but the essays are where you're able to express who you are and how you think. So I'd really go over that with a fine-tooth comb, make sure you're portraying yourself not just authentically, but also in a good light too. You kind of have to know how to pull at your strengths and how to show how you're working on your weaknesses. Third is not all of the applications require this, but some will require a resume or curriculum vitae or CV. So I would just make sure that that is updated, relevant, and that you've proofread through it so that you know that it's a refined document. Another thing is these are kind of being phased out. but standardized test scores, so things like the GRE, MCAT for med school, DAT, and quite a few others. Um, Look up your program's requirements, like a minimum standardized test score and then a competitive one. You can often find those things online pretty easily. Another thing is prerequisites. Everyone should know about these. These are your courses, they're your shadow hours, if the program requires it, and anything else they want to throw in there. So make sure that your coursework, you're meeting all the requirements. I had to take a couple of summer classes to meet some of my requirements. So just make sure you're staying on top of that. Second part is people usually ask about what about an application makes me competitive and all this sort of thing. Really what they are looking for is that you're well-rounded. So sometimes they can see that through how many types of extracurriculars you have. Sure, you have like a 4.0 on your GPA, but you didn't do anything else. That doesn't exactly look like you're well-rounded, right? So they want to see that you're doing something like a sport, craft, something you enjoy. Also volunteer experience is another one. They like to see that you're not just gonna like learn things, go out and work, and that's it. They want to see how you're gonna give back to the field that you're entering in. My tips for admission is definitely shadow. Shadow a lot, shadow frequently, and shadow in a variety of settings. Like I shadowed a bunch of different people. I also like phone interviewed people whose jobs I was interested in. You can also ask current students what they think about the program. What did they do for their applications? Hey, can you read over my essay if you actually know them? And then the last thing is plan ahead. Make sure you're looking at those deadlines. When are the essays due? When are the letters of recommendation due? Sometimes those deadlines will vary. Usually it's just one application deadline, get it all in before this date. Sometimes they'll require things to be completed on a different date. Okay, so life in grad school. The transition from undergrad to grad school is always going to be a little rocky. For me, I just wanted to pull this example. Like I used to be able to, in undergrad, study for an exam a week before, or maybe even the day before. But no, I cannot do that anymore. For grad school, I am having to study throughout the semester to prepare for an exam. That's just an example of how much time you should be giving to grad school. Personally, it was really challenging just because of the work-life balance. I had to kind of relearn that, as we always do when we're transitioning to a harder work experience. Prioritization. I wanted to talk about this. This is a big one that sometimes people get bogged down in. Let's say you have a 5-point quiz tomorrow, and you also have a 50-point exam tomorrow. You should not be prioritizing the 5-point quiz over the 50-point exam. So that seems obvious when you put it in those terms, but when you're actually going about studying, it can be hard to remember that this is just a 5-point quiz. I can put this on the back burner while I study for this 50-point exam. Sometimes that means you don't even turn it in, and not great, but less less of consequences if you miss than if you miss the 50-point exam. Another concept is diminishing returns. So figuring out when your investment doesn't pay off. Let's say I'm staying up till 2 a.m. studying, which I've done before, and I'm getting like 5 minutes of work done. Not great. So that would be when my investment is not giving me gains that are worth it to me. Another tip I have is make social plans. Have something planned. If you don't have it planned, it's probably not going to happen. At least that's how I kind of work. And another thing that I get asked about is, hey, can I work during grad school? I'll leave that totally up to you. I did not. But I understand that some people they're not the same, and they have different backgrounds, and sometimes they are required to work. If you can reduce your hours while working, that would be good. I know people who work 5 to 10 hours a week, if that gives you a ballpark. Okay, briefly about finances. It really depends on your personal budget, your current circumstances. a bunch of other things that I don't know. But definitely search out for scholarships. So internal versus external. Internal are ones that are provided by your institution and are granted within the program. And external ones are ones that you get from outside sources other than your program or the federal government. But beyond this, look for advice from your undergrad institution, like I mentioned, career centers. Some professors might also have tips for you, healthcare workers that you know, some family, friends, or family friends. And definitely look up student loans and see what is a student loan if you don't already have them. Figure out what all the different terms mean so you can make informed decisions about finances. And the other one that I wanted to mention is look at the program's website. They might have things on their website that talk about finances. You can also email them. You can talk to admissions counselors and just figure out what are your resources for this. Okay, so here's some helpful links. The first one is kind of a vocational interest assessment. That kind of tells you what careers you might be interested in. I also linked the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook here on the second one. This will tell you about the salary for jobs, the job growth for the next like 5 years or something. And then I also linked FAFSA here so you can learn more about student loans. And they do differ from undergrad to grad, so that is something to know. And then I also wanted to link this. It's a cost of living comparison. So you can put in your home city as your baseline, and then you can put in another city just to see like, oh, is the cost of living like 10 times higher? That's something that you need to plan for when you're looking at grad schools. And yeah, if you have questions, please reach out to me. I would love to answer them. My email is down below. And yeah, I'm Lily. I'm a student physical therapist, and thank you for listening.